everybody. It is Tuesday. We got some Tuesday energy today.
Woo.
Spicy
Molly's
Tuesday.
back.
Spicy Tuesday.
What are we talking about today? Is there anything on the docket?
We have a long talk about the Labor Department's new proposed test for gig economy workers. It sounds so, you think that like labor policy is not that interesting, but it turns out
it relates to startups in a big way, right? I mean,
100%. Yes.
100% does. All of these startup labor laws are critically important, whether you're hiring a freelance designer or your company is based on gig workers. And it's a big issue for America. And we chop it up for longer than I expected to get. There's a little bit of spice in there. I'll be honest, medium spice.
Just, if you want to understand what we're saying, listen to all the words, everybody. I'm just going to tell you that up front. Listen to all the words.
And then
minus your assumptions. And then we will talk about robots. Eventually, we will get to robots. We're going to talk about Bear Robotics, a startup building self-driving food running robots. We're going to talk about when robots can work and when they try too hard.
Yes. And finally, we'll do some M&A talk. It looks like the instant delivery space, which Molly has been a bit skeptical about, and I don't disagree with her. There's some consolidation coming. Getir is looking to acquire gorillas. So consolidation is what we see in a down market. It's healthy, it's painful, and it's upon us. And
should you want to understand JCal's worldview, seriously.
Yes.
It comes from his life. And we just get a great 1980s Brooklyn story from Jason. It's just another peek behind the curtain. It's just another layer of the onion. Just stay tuned for that. It's going to be a great show.
It's paradoxically about gig workers, just a different type.
Yeah.
Stick with us.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by LinkedIn Marketing. To redeem a free $100 LinkedIn ad credit and launch your first campaign, go to linkedin.com/thisweekinstartups. Policygenius. You could save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policygenius. Options start at just $17 per month for $500,000 of coverage. Head to policygenius.com to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. And Revelo. Looking to affordably scale your product development with global tech talent in U.S. time zones? Hire vetted remote developers in Latin America with Revelo. Get 20% off for the first 3 months at revelo.com/twist.
All right, everybody, it's Tuesday. Molly is back. How's the speaking gig, Molly?
I'm back. It was amazing. I get a little nervous. Keynotes, I do a lot of panels, do a lot of moderating. Easy. I don't do a ton of keynotes, so I was a little So I really prepared, and I just got some feedback that the initial response from the audience is that I was the best keynote speaker they've ever had.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic, man.
I'm like on cloud nine right now. Keynote achievement unlocked.
I am going to write up a keynote. I'm going to be teaching Founder University, by the way.
Yes.
And so I
do
have
you guys all know this, by the way? JCal is going to be teaching it himself.
Yeah. I decided, sometimes like Prof. J, if you will. So anyway, I just realized we are finding incredible companies in Founder University. I think we've invested in 18 of them or something to that effect. And I like to go earlier. And so the inception point where people decide, I have an idea, has not been the purview of venture capital or funds. It's too much work. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. And too much work. When I hear too much work, you know what I think? Let's go. All right, great.
Yeah, totally.
It's just my
Sounds
DNA.
Like opportunity to me.
Well, exactly. It's like, if you look at Y Combinator and Techstars and Launch Accelerator, most funds will dabble in an accelerator. In fact, Sequoia is doing one right now. It's not exactly accelerator. It's a 3-week program where they kind of teach their growth philosophy. So it's not even like 16 weeks or 12 weeks like some of the other ones out there. But every firm at some point says, ooh, we should do that. Mm-hmm. And Sequoia's is called ARC, by the way. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. I think it's like sort of a PhD program, maybe. If we're graduate school and then there's other places that are undergrad, this kind of like, PhD program or professional development kind of program. But anyway, putting that aside, Molly, a fund starts an accelerator. And then you know what the fund managers realize? Oh, my Lord, this is work.
Yep.
When you have one company that has 100 customers and 12 employees and their accounting is nice and tight, they're serial entrepreneurs, you know what that is for an investor? Easy,
right.
That's easy.
Yeah, rubber stamp.
Yeah, you kind of go to the board meeting, they present everything nice and tight. It's a very fully baked, refined team. It's like somebody who's been a restaurateur for 20 years, they come to you with their latest fast casual concept. I'm going to make a burger joint. Here's what it's going to be. And I'm bringing my chef from, this Michelin-starred restaurant to do the menu. And then we're going to train people, and we'll have some supervisors from our other Michelin-starred places come by every weekend and train the staff. Okay, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. No work on the VC's part, especially if you're investing in that founder for the second or third time. Wonderful. Now, you find somebody who's like, I want to start a food truck. And I did a pop-up, and I couldn't get people paid $50 to come to my pop-up, and I couldn't even keep up with the number of people who came. I didn't collect the money in advance. People stiffed me. People walked out. Service was a disaster. It's kind of like The Bear. You see the TV show The Bear yet?
Yeah. So
remember in The Bear, he's dealing with like a bunch of raw talent who nobody's ever believed in. That's kind of my jam. I kind of like that energy. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
And so we're now like sort of embracing that with Founder University. Starts November 14th. It's $500 to go to this. If you come to all 12 weeks, we give you back the $500, which by the way has costed me thousands of dollars. I just found out that we have to pick up the refund fees. So I'm actually losing money on that. But anyway.
But no, we're not. Not in the long term because we're doing the work.
Precisely.
It's an investment.
But anyway, somebody just wrote a wonderful review and did a YouTube video on this. So Founder University is going to be the big investment for me personally over the next couple of months because I just want to meet founders earlier.
Did you say you're also going to turn it into a keynote? It's a TED Talk.
Thank you. So
you're welcome.
I created this curriculum with our curriculum designer, Charlie, who's amazing, but I'm going to kind of 2.0 it as we go there. And so I'm going to do the curriculum, but then I decided it could be like a freestyle after, because when I went to Stanford on Friday, an unpaid speaking gig, I took 9 pitches and it was an hour and a half, but then I took an hour and a half of questions and then had a dialogue with the audience. And I was like, wow, this is great. And of the 150 people who packed into a 75-seat room, 100 of them came for burgers and beers afterwards. And then we talked for another 2 or 3 hours. It was like 6 hours. I came out of that at 11:30 at night. I was so pumped. Couldn't sleep till 2 o'clock. Had a million ideas. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do with this Founder University. I want to find a classroom where I can actually go teach it in person and let some people come in person too.
Amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, it's got my creative juices flowing. I'm very excited about it. I wish you would, if you're listening to this, apply. Here's what you need: a work ethic, an open mind, and maybe or maybe not an idea. But you got to come to all 12 weeks. If you miss a week, we keep your $500. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it's a death in the family, we'll make an exception or something like that. Or it's a kid's rehearsal. Obviously I get it. But anyway, I'm very excited to do it.
Based on yesterday's speaking gig, I would like to say, if you are considering coming to Founder University, I have a request for startup.
Okay.
Which is
hit me.
Data lineage. So the talk I gave yesterday was about the data economy, the kind of precarious state of the data economy. There's a lot more regulation. We now know that targeting and retargeting technology and too much information leads directly to disinformation, right? Like helps propagate that. So there's a lot of risk now in the way that people have always done things with respect to data collection. So after, which is like you said, the best time is always like the Q&A, and then after, when everybody's like telling you the real scoop about what they're dealing with. A lot of these cybersecurity executives are dealing with this question of data lineage. Like, how do you even do an audit? That technology doesn't really exist yet. And I'm like, this is like the most
What's
obvious,
another word for lineage?
Like
so I understand, or maybe an example.
Right. Like it would be kind of like if you were lawyers going to trial and you have to create a chain of custody of evidence. Like you're basically just tracing it. So you'd be, in the case of a data audit, it would be like, okay, how much data is here? What is it? When did we collect it? Where did we put it? How is it all classified? Like it's literally just a freaking card catalog system for the data that an enterprise has, which right now a lot of times is just like a big pile of unstructured data because storage is really cheap. Sounds like it could be a use case for blockchain, but it doesn't have to be. Provenance.
Probably don't need to put it on.
It's a database for data.
Yeah. I mean, there are databases that are much faster and secure and changeable. Like, blockchain is for immutable. When the public needs to see it, everybody needs to have access to it. It's kind of a different use case.
And from a privacy perspective, that's actually not good, because a lot of times if you're doing this data audit, what you want to find out is what you can delete. Because having all this data around forever is just a privacy violation waiting to happen. I mean, a breach.
This is the key thing that I think we have to get to as a society. The French, I remember reading this, the wonderful group of people, very unique in their outlook in life. They were like, why do you need to have phone records for more than a year? They're like, well, sir, we need to have your phone records for the past 10 years. So if you dispute the bill, we can pull up the phone number or whatever. And it's like, why would I dispute the bill? It's 3 years old. You don't need to dispute this. 3 years old. It's over. Life is moving forward. It's a stream. We're not going upstream to see the bill from 2019. What's the point? So anyway, they don't. I got to work on that. They don't work.
I'm like,
they don't allow the phone companies to keep records past a certain point.
And they don't.
We should just say to Google. We should say any search that's over 100 days old, the default should be gone.
Yep.
Any profile data over a year old, default should be gone. And I should have to opt in. Would you like to keep your data? We currently keep your search history for 100 days. We currently keep this for a year. Would you like to turn them off?
Exactly.
Those kind of common sense defaults would be a wonderful thing for people to do. And some people, are like, why are this data becomes a liability? So I think it's a good idea. Like if you had a way to audit data or just let people know, hey, look, we looked at all your databases. We found phone numbers over here. We found dates of birth over here. We found keywords about health over here. You could just be like, here are the things that will get you in trouble, right? Exactly. Social security numbers, home addresses. Boom.
It is a massive opportunity right now because of the way the regulations are changing and all of that. Yeah, this is a huge opportunity. So founders, I'm talking to you. The name of my talk, ironically, it's minimum viable data.
Minimum viable data is a great idea. Yeah. I mean, and then, where does the data reside? I think I really like this idea that on my phone, Apple knows my preferences. And this relates to our discussion about algorithms the other week, which we had one on All In, and you and I have had that conversation a couple of times here. Just if my profile on my phone would tell me, hey, on a topics basis, here are the topics we see you going to in the Apple News, Apple Music, and your apps writ large. So Netflix, this thing. So we know you like Queen's Gambit. We see you use the chess app. We have you pinned as like into chess and poker and the Knicks and the Warriors, yada, yada, yada. Would you like to delete any of these? And I could say, yes. I don't want people to know I'm into chess as much as I am. It could be another topic, let's say, that maybe I'm kind of fronting here that I'm into chess.
Just go with chess.
Let's go with chess. But you're into
Yeah. No, I got you. Picking up what you laid down.
You're really listening to a lot of Britney Spears and liking a lot of Britney Spears.
There we go.
You're spending a lot of time on Britney Spears posts on Instagram, and you're listening to a lot of Britney. I just say, you know what? Britney is like my own personal obsession. So I am going to say, not only delete Britney from my algorithm, which is private, and my preferences on my phone, I want you to permanently never record my Britney activity. This would be something humans are capable of.
Yeah.
But we're sitting here going, oh, humans are just not sophisticated enough to do it. It's BS.
It's BS.
And this is where empowering consumers is always the right thing to do. I think my operating philosophy, when I create my political party, common sense party, whatever I'm going to call it.
Oh, dear.
Empowering individuals to have agency and choice is going to be a core tenet of this, because I think it's something that's been lost a bit. And it kind of leads into our
It certainly has in the tech industry, 100%. Even all of the privacy moves that Apple's making, like that's lovely, but I don't see Apple giving me the tools that you just described, which is let me edit my own algorithm, if you will.
But they did screw up the retail business by not letting people retarget people. So they do seem to be...
Absolutely.
I think they're sincere about it.
Oh, they're 100%. There's still this outstanding question is what they're doing with my data better? But they're very serious about it as a business. And that tells you Apple knows a little something about business and consumers. That tells you what's going to happen going forward. Like if you have not disrupted your data as usual plan, now's the time.
It does seem like Apple is skating to where the puck is going, as Steve Jobs would always say from the Wayne Gretzky quote. Because they see it as an inevitability that consumers will take control of their privacy. So why not start that process early? And they don't make any money from this stuff. So what's the point?
They do have a fledgling
empowering
business,
individuals, I think, is a big part of what gig work has done, Let's talk about this controversial issue.
Smooth.
Hey, everybody. I'm here with my pal, Tom Eschbacher. He is the Senior Sales Manager at LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. And today, we're going to talk about marketing for startups. And LinkedIn did a great new internal report called Today in Startup Marketing. Welcome to the program, Tom.
Thanks, Jason.
We all know organic reach, super important. You make great content, you get your likes, you get your shares, you get your comments. But what people don't know is that you can boost organic and it creates a bit of momentum on your site. Can you unpack that for people?
Definitely. So organic is just going to go to the audience who's already following you and then a smaller group of members who are connected to any of those audiences. So what we often encourage is keep an eye on your organic engagement metrics and who are the people and companies and segments that are engaging most frequently with your content, and then amplify that reach via our best-in-class paid advertising targeting. So what that means, and what we've seen, especially for seed and Series A companies, is by boosting successful organic posts with paid, it results in a 13x lift in unique reach. And that's really meaningful insights that can help inform your product and go-to-marketing strategies and open up new audiences for you.
You can go to linkedin.com/thisweekinstartups and get the report for free, as well as $100 from Tom.
There is reporting out today from the New York Times that the U.S. Labor Department has announced a new proposal that would change the classification test for gig workers. So you may recall that under the Trump administration, the Labor Department created tests for how to classify gig workers. And that is whether they are contractors or full-time employees.
Yeah.
And currently, the test is under those Trump era Labor Department rules that there are two main factors to be considered when you're determining if a worker is an employee or a contractor. One, the degree of control a company has over the worker. And two, the extent to which a worker can increase their income by taking entrepreneurial initiative, like marketing their services. So this was like pretty broad. It was considered pretty broad, right? It suggested that, for example, gig workers like Uber drivers would likely be considered independent contractors. And, people representing gig workers thought that it was too broad because it allowed companies to classify all kinds of workers as gig workers when they should have been employees. So now Biden's Labor Department approach, which I believe is not yet confirmed, but that they're thinking about, would argue that more factors have to be weighed when you try to figure out a worker classification. And among the additional factors are whether the work being performed is central to a company's business. So this would 100% reopen the Uber question in terms of drivers, for example. And then what kinds of investments workers make to do their jobs, such as buying their own equipment.
Right. This used to be very easy. We had a 20-point test the IRS used to do, and we would just run through this test back in the day if they're freelance or full-time. You can look up 20-point test. It's deprecated now. But the 20-point test, I'll just give you a couple of them. Instructions. Does the worker need to comply with employee instructions on how, where, and when to work? Where and when to work for gig economy workers. We'll expand it beyond Uber, which I'm still a shareholder in, but just for any of that gig work. And if you included freelance writers, where and when they work, nobody cares, right? Who cares? How you work?
It depends, right? I mean, it depends on who's hiring. Like the thing is that this question of contract work expanded to all kinds of things. So people would be hiring contractor engineers.
Yeah.
Who they would effectively classify as gig workers, but say you have to come into the office and write code for us every day.
Yeah. And so that would break the rule of where and when. Right. So once you put a shift on it and a location, you've broken the number one in the 20-factor test. So this is where Microsoft used to put people on contract, and they had a thing where like the duration of it, like 3 months or 6 months, and then you would cancel the person was a contractor, and then you had to rehire them and do a process again. So this was all open to interpretation. Training. Does the worker receive periodic or ongoing training performing the services rendered? Well, no, of course not. Like if you're a freelance writer, if you're a hair stylist, barber, if you are a real estate broker, there are a number of categories like this where people could provide services. Integration in business operations. Does the services rendered by the worker a core business activity? This is one of those tests that they're still struggling with. Does the business business success heavily rely on the worker's performance? Well, of course it does. And this is like a very general one. So you could fail this one, but pass the other ones and still be considered a freelancer. And you can, set hours for work was the big one, right? Is it mandatory for them to work at a certain time? Is full-time work required? And, what we see is when you have a Republican in office, people are very much in favor of freelance and people having agency and being able to choose. When you have old school Democrats in, like Biden, who are very pro-union, they're kind of living in the 1950s, where they expect, and this is the problem I have with this, is they are dictating to people how they work and where they work. And you know who I think suffers the most from this? I think women suffer the most from this.
Okay.
This is living. I will tell you my position. You can fight it. I believe that this is incredibly anti-stay-at-home parent, which statistically, more often than not, is a female. This is a lot of women who come back to the workplace do it through freelancing. And that's why when you look at real estate agents, this was a primarily female, at least in California, way to get back into the workforce, or if you had kids and you were the stay-at-home parent. So I'm painting with a broad brush here, but the statistics are the statistics. That was a job that many women would take to get back into the career. Freelance writing, another one. And increasingly with gig economy, you're seeing that. I think that people should be able to make their own decision, and companies should treat these employees really well. And if you look at what Uber did, Uber picked a third way to do this. They started giving people a contribution if they worked more than 15 hours a week. This seems perfectly reasonable to me. There needs to be a place between being a pure freelancer, which is your right as an American to be a freelancer, or being full-time. And the issue here is benefits. And the other issue for certain people is, can we increase the number of people in a union? Because they get put in office by unions. There's the end of my rant. Go ahead, Molly. You may have strong feelings otherwise. Take down what I got wrong, or what you disagree with.
I'm gonna try to
go for it.
I was
Permission granted. Go
in there.
Go for point by point. I've been on this issue as a hire of freelancers. You can't hire freelance writers in California anymore because of this insanity.
That you can't hire freelance writers anymore because of this insanity. I think that in order to...
Wait, you said you don't care or you do care?
No, I'm aware. I am aware.
That is true. Care.
So, so there's the one issue of policy.
Yeah.
On the one hand, there was a rise in gig work. Yep. Some people like the freedom and agency that they get from gig work. However, many companies abused the gig worker status.
True.
Underpaid people, hired contractors and gig workers instead of employees. And therefore, because this is what we do in the area of policy and politics, we overcorrected to solve for those abuses, which were real. Unfortunately, the way that we have overcorrected is to try to re-implement the way that work has always been done. So 9 to 5, 40 hours a week doesn't work for stay-at-home moms or all kinds of people who want some sort of work flexibility, and maybe a scenario that would allow dads to be more involved parents because they would have more work flexibility. What we do need is, it is disappointing to me that we keep coming up with policy that doesn't address this kind of third way, that if there were pooled benefits, if we were able to solve the question of healthcare, you could give people a more flexible work environment in which to operate that is not either one or the other, right? Gig work, you are at the mercy of whatever happens to you in life for the most part, versus you will show up and be exactly where your boss tells you all the time with absolutely no flexibility whatsoever. I really, really want there to be a compromise position, and I would have loved to see the Labor Department take some steps in that direction. I do think that asking these fundamental questions, do you have to buy your own equipment to do this? And then asking this question, is the work being performed central to a company's business? Those sound like common sense questions in terms of determining. Question. Okay, hold on. You said I could go do my rant.
Okay, go.
However, I will not accept the framing that somehow this is about Republicans wanting more freedom. The reason that we are having this debate, the reason that Uber did institute some, you will have to give back some, you can contribute if you drive 15 hours, is because many, many, many companies abused and misclassified their workers as gig workers.
There were some who
not. Yeah. So this idea that like then Democrats come in and it's just like a union thing is like, no, that's look, are they defaulting to old thinking with respect to employment? Sure.
Of course. Yeah.
But I'm not going to sit here and say that workers have not been wholesale classified. And look, the media media was terrible about this. Terrible. Yeah. Like public media in particular was excoriated because we constantly hired contractors instead of full-time employees. Constantly.
But you're saying it was hypocritical. You would have somebody like NPR or New York Times hiring freelancers constantly.
Yes, constantly.
Because they didn't want to have to pay benefits. And then they would be riding the gig work economy while they were on the other side of their mouths hiring freelance editors, engineers, fact checkers, etc.
I'm saying every industry was doing this. Yes. And that is why now we can't even really have a reasoned conversation about it because it started with abuse. It ended with overcorrection.
Yep.
We need to get somewhere in the middle. And frankly, universal freaking healthcare would solve almost 85% all of this. Like it would solve 85% of this.
100%. Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
I do like your framing of this. I think it's very intellectually honest. There was abuse, there was hypocrisy, and it became politicized. All right, everybody, listen, life insurance is so, so important, and getting it will create amazing peace of mind for you and your loved ones, your coworkers, your investors. And when you're a founder or a startup employee, peace of mind is hard to come by, right? We got a lot of anxiety, a lot of things we got to get done. So I want you to check out Policygenius. Policygenius was built to modernize the life insurance industry, which if you've ever gone through this, which I have, it is not modern. It's an insurance marketplace that makes it easy to compare quotes from top companies like AIG and Prudential in just a few clicks. And this will help you easily find the lowest price and the best policy. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $17 per month for $500,000 in coverage. And Policygenius has licensed agents who can help you find options that offer coverage in as little as a week. And this helps avoid unnecessary medical exams. And these agents work for you, not the insurance companies. Plus, Policygenius doesn't add on extra fees, and they won't sell your data to third parties. Your loved ones deserve a financial safety net. You deserve a smarter way to find and buy it. So head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description of this podcast to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. I think if you just think from first principles, when does a person deserve to be a full-time employee? What would be a benchmark that is reasonable? Because saying that they contribute to the business, well, that's anybody who's working for a business is contributing to the business. That's a very hard argument to make. Like your outside accountants, your outside lawyers.
They're saying central to a company's business. For example, drivers for Uber and Lyft.
Right. And real estate brokers and hairdressers. So that when you say central, that means all freelancers are basically cut out because any engineer at
hairdresser is not central to a salon. An individual.
It's the exact same thing.
Hairdressing is central to a salon.
Yes.
But therefore the hairdresser But the salon, like if you've got one person, you're a salon.
Yes. And if you have one driver, you're, DoorDash. The point is,
if you have no drivers, you're not Uber, DoorDash, or Lyft.
And if you have no hairdressers, you're not a salon.
No, you could be cutting hair.
Yes. And then so every hairdresser has to then start their own entity. And that's not what hairdressers want to do. Hairdressers want to pick their hours. They want to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They want to have their book of business. They want to have their equipment. They do not want the equipment given to them. And they don't want to come on a shift. They want to pick their times. Well, and then
those are industries that now had a model that worked fine for everybody, sort of, right? I mean, hairdressers would be like, I pay 70% of my profits for the seat, and that could be abusive on its own. But it's just a question of scale. It's like once the abuses get to a certain scale, then you got to overcorrect at the same scale. And unfortunately, we haven't yet seen, I don't think, a really forward-looking it's only the one. It's universal healthcare.
The industry policed itself. I talk about this on the podcast all the time. If you want to have great success You should have great responsibility, and you should try to do more than what the law is asking of you, right? The problem is the law is so politicized, with one side wanting no regulation, and that could be because of abuses or just being free market monsters or just believing wholly in the free market. Like there's some people who don't believe in a minimum wage. They believe the market should set it. And then on the other side, people who just want the union roles to grow because the unions vote in unison. So putting those two things aside, it's a pretty simple test
What's
here.
the third way?
It's very simple. You just look at the number of hours a person works. And if they are forced to come to a location and work on a shift, that's what defines an employee. And when you control their time, when you control how they do their job, and they work over a certain number of hours, that's a full-time employee. And it's somewhere around 30 hours a week, commonsensical. And do they have other jobs that they can work? In other words, can you demand they work for you today? You know, Uber and Lyft and DoorDash, we've all seen it. People will have two phones so they can keep both apps up at the same time. They'll have an Android phone with Lyft or whatever. They can leave at any time and work for a different service. And most of them will take calls from multiple services depending on the spiff that they give them. The real problem here, Molly, which people don't understand, is very nuanced. You have to pick one. You're not allowed to have two different modalities or else you break the law. You have to treat all employees the same. What employees should do is every 3 months, they should elect, I want to be full-time and I commit to this set. I will wear the Uber logo on a polo. I will pick a shift from the open shifts and I'll get benefits and they'll accrue and I'll get time off, yada, yada. Or they say, I'm not wearing an Uber or DoorDash hat and looking like a dork. And I'm not putting a DoorDash logo on the side of my car and with a metallic thing like Domino's people have to do. No way am I doing that. I don't want that. I just want to go out, do 3 rides before my kids get home from school so that I can pay for it, whether you're the mom, dad, or both. That is the easy solution. But you're not allowed to implement that solution. You're not allowed to let individuals have agency. That's the screwed up part. That's what I object to. I object to individuals not being able to make their own decisions, not be entrepreneurial. And you know who they do this to? They do it to the people who are up and coming. They carved out lawyers. They carved out real estate brokers. So if you're rich or you're in the
I want to be super clear. You're specifically
California.
Talking about AB5, right? California. Okay.
Well, and then in general, when these laws are enacted, a group of people who have lobbies and money, which tend to be the real estate brokers, the lawyers, et cetera, they say, yeah, we can't be part of that. And whoever's doing it says, okay, yeah, sure. We'll let you out of that. And then who do they force to do it? They're forced to do the entry-level jobs because those people don't have representation. And they're like, no, you have to join. You as a driver are not smart enough, don't have enough agency. You don't get to choose. You know what? They do have the intelligence to choose. And there is a free market and they should be able to choose.
I mean, I guess that the counter argument is that those are also the workers that need the most protection because they have the least power, make the least amount of money, and cannot organize into a lobbying and don't necessarily have the same earning potential as the lawyers and the real estate agents. I'm just saying, if you look at who a law like that is designed to protect, it might be the least powerful among us.
I think that they don't need protection is the point. I think they can leave Uber and go to Lyft. They can leave Lyft and go to DoorDash. They can leave DoorDash and go to Starbucks. They can leave Starbucks and go to Target. We have 6. If this was a situation where we had no jobs available, we still have 10 million job openings. We have 62% labor participation.
But
we peaked at 70.
That was not the case when these laws were conceived.
It was.
Not when AB5 was conceived.
Oh, yes, it was. We were at 62% labor participation. This has been the big issue is people don't want to work full-time work, Molly. They don't want that job. And that's why people won't participate. People don't want to go to 40 hours. Who wants to go drag their ass to Target and work an 8-hour shift and get there at 6 a.m., have to put their makeup and take a shower and put on a dorky Target, be a Walmart greeter? It's oppressive when compared to doing 3 DoorDash rides in the afternoon. This is why we don't have labor participation because we're not giving people enough choice. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I just feel like people should make their own decisions in life.
I mean, I hear you. I just also think that if you made a living wage at Target and you got health insurance, you'd be fine with it, right? Why is it a terrible, awful, horrible grind? Because you get paid nothing and you could get let go anytime and you don't have health insurance. There's this sort of alternative idea or question about why people don't want to work. It's either they're lazy or they don't get paid enough and they don't get enough protection to make it worthwhile.
There's actually multiple things going on in this regard. You have rich kids who have rich parents, and this is big wealth transfer that's going to happen, and they're being subsidized. The second one is people have enough ways to make money as freelancers that they refuse to take the oppressive jobs, and they would rather make less money or have less benefits, but have more flexibility. And that's a choice humans can make. You know, like, do you want to work 5, 10-hour shifts at Target, or would you rather work 30 hours going across the different, gig works? And people have chosen, people are making their own choices in real time.
They're making their own choices, but they're still in a situation where if something bad happens to them, they die because they don't have health insurance.
Yeah,
like you're still choosing, you have
Google
agency, but you're not necessarily choosing like between two awesome opportunities.
And this is where looking at what Uber did.
I just want that third way. I just want that one thing solved. Like just
third
don't
way
let
is the solution.
It's the solution.
One fact that you need to know about startups. Finding engineers is super time consuming and super expensive. It's the biggest pain in the neck in startups. I would say raising money is easier than finding great developers. Well, if you're looking for qualified international developers without the crazy time differences, or if you just want to scale without sacrificing on quality, well, Revelo is the answer. Revelo is a talent platform that matches you and your startup with vetted full-time remote developers in Latin America. They work in the same time zone as you in the United States. Plus, it's more cost-effective than hiring in the US, obviously. And you'll get matched with vetted candidates within 3 days. This lets you hire internationally so quickly and so easily. Revelo's engineers are, of course, full-time, and they're embedded in your team. Just like normal employees, they're proficient in all the things that you probably have in your stack, whether it's AWS, Rust, Ruby, React, Python, Node.js, and more. Revelo's customers, wait for it, GitHub, Foursquare, Carta, Indiegogo, Kickstarter. I mean, this is a who's who of successful companies. So go to revelo.com/twist and mention twist to get 20% off your first 3 months. Plus, they offer 100% risk-free 14-day trial period. If you're not satisfied, you pay nothing. So head to revelo.com/twist and mention twist to get that 20% off. And then if you look at this Uber thing, this came out a while back, but Uber specifically, I know this because I was, obviously discussing this with the founders and the team. They have guaranteed minimum earnings. They have injury protection. They basically got ahead of this, and they did a healthcare stipend. They weren't forced to do this stuff. They did this proactively. They were going to the government. They were going to specifically the Democrats on that side and saying, here, how about this? And they said, nope, the only thing we'll accept is a union and to be treated and have shifts. That was the only way the Democrats would do this.
Or is
Democrats and unions. That was the only way. They refused to do any other way. I know this up front. I think this is a leak in the Democrats' game. They are actually working against...
That I have never heard. I've heard that the Democrats were like, no, it has to be full employment. And it was and it was very irritating.
And it has to be union. Yeah. That was their position. And I watched it up close and personal, especially in California. They were absolutely rigid. And this is why the Democrats, I think, are losing this contingent of individuals. Those people don't want to be part of a union, and they want to make their own decisions in life. And this parochial, what's the better word? For parochial. Like making this parochial. This parochial, I'm going to make the decision for you, I think is why some of those people are going to the Republican Party and secretly like Trump. And it's just really bad. You should give people choice. Don't force people to be in a union. Don't force people to work 12-hour shifts. They want to work 4 hours and go see their kids. Let people have choice. I mean, this is America.
I 100% agree. I think there is some perception that I don't agree with you when I say over and over and over and over. And yes, I'm talking to you, Noties. I want there to be a third way for employees.
Yes.
I want them to have choice and I want them to have protection. And I do not think that anything about that is some sort of radical leftist opinion.
I think
for God's sake,
people see you as being default Democratic when you're actually, well, I think you are, my perception of you and how you're perceived is that you are an independent critical thinker who has strong feelings about employees having protections. And you're looking at the history of them being abused and saying, if there's abuse, well, that's the price you pay, is that you're going to get regulated. if you get ahead of it.
I think like I can most accurately be described as a populist.
Populist. Okay. Yeah.
Like before populist became a dirty word, I'm just a populist. I'm for the people. Like,
yeah.
Yes, you should have choice and flexibility. And no, you should not be forced to like die in a gutter if you get hurt because you don't have any health care. Like, this is not a hard, this is not a hard place to land.
Well, I mean, then see, this is the argument. The challenging part of being a populist, I think, is are unions in their current execution in 2022?
What does populism have to do with unions?
Well, I'll tell you.
It doesn't to me.
It doesn't necessarily. But when looking at unions, do people who are being forced to go into unions want to be in unions or not? And is it a populist view? Which is the more populist view? Let people have agency and make decisions, or force them to be in a union? And I think this is one of the defining issues of our time: is are these unions actually helping or hurting the people who are in them? And are they acting in their interest, the union's interest, and the politicians who benefit from these unions, or are they acting in the individual's interest? And I think it's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I would say I would just reframe the question. Is the rise in interest in unions, and is the kind of equal and opposite reaction of the Democratic Party to say everybody needs to be in a union, is that the equal and opposite reaction to worker abuse? It doesn't mean that unions, I am sitting here saying, again, over and over and over, I don't think unions are the better answer. They're not.
I never heard you say that.
No, that's what I keep saying by third way. Third way.
Right.
Not
so
this.
You're open to the
this.
idea that the unions are not acting in the best interest of their employees, of their members at all times.
I don't understand how I became in any way some sort of a mouthpiece for unions. Like, I want there to be a third way. There needs to be a third way. The reason that everybody is pushing toward things like unions is in reaction to worker abuses, and they can't come up with a better solution. But they need one.
I can tell you,
and universal health care, as I said, pretty clearly would solve 80% of those.
Because I watched as Uber and all these folks offered the third way, and the Democrats and the unions held the line and said no.
Yes, that's totally true. I'm not saying it's not an overreaction. That's what I just said. It's an overreaction. It is an overcorrection.
Yeah.
That's what we do. I'm disappointed that the administration didn't come out and offer a third way.
Okay, there we go. And so what this means for you, if you're going to do gig workers, is you better look at these tests and just anticipate. This is the takeaway for startups.
Yeah.
Make sure that the people who are freelancers for you feel so good about being a freelancer that they will fight for you and with you against these things, which is what ultimately happened with the drivers and the delivery people. They actually were like, please don't screw this up. Please don't make me work shift work. Please don't make me put a uniform on. Please don't tell me what hours to work. And that's why Uber won over and Lyft and DoorDash. That whole group won because they were so good to the drivers. And I know people have this perception, the drivers hate these services. They do not. They may want to get paid more money, of course. They may want more rides, of course. But they are voting with their time and their support of being freelancers and their actual behavior. The average person, I don't know the statistics today, but back in the day, Molly, the average person who worked like 15 or 20 hours this week would work 5 or 10 the next week. The variability of it was like 70% of people would switch by 50% the number of hours they work per week. It was really crazy. And it turned out people used this to pay acute bills in their life, or they had more free time because of school or kids or whatever. And the variability was bonkers. People would disappear from the network for 10 days. Then they would work 10 days in a row. They would do 3 hours a day for, every other day. And then they would do 10 hours a day for 3 days. It was really weird. And it turned out they were trying to game the system. Eventually what happened was the equilibrium of where demand was, the drivers as a group collectively started gaming the algorithms. They'd say, I'm not going to work these hours. I'm going to wait till Friday and Saturday night. I'm going to get those, those premium rides that are, or I'm only going to do airport rides. They actually became very entrepreneurial in how they approached using it. But what a mess. What a mess.
It's a mess. It's going to stay a mess. We should be clear, these Labor Department guidelines have not officially come out. It's intended, the proposal, as an interpretive rule that does not have the legal force of a regulation specifically authorized by Congress. So it would be different from the existing IRS rules. The Labor Department guidelines, what they often become, though, the thing that people hire to, because you don't want to have to be the person who like explains to a judge why you didn't.
And the states tend to follow these.
The states
use them as a guideline. So they do have major influence. Anyway, treat employees well and give people choice, I think, is the basic interpretation.
Well, and I think certainly cleaning up the criteria, setting aside unions and all of that other noise, cleaning up the criteria will prevent abuse that will hopefully lessen the kind of extreme responses to the topic. Just like make it clear. Just make it clear when you're an employee and when you're not. And then anybody who skirts it is in trouble, you know?
The area where you get into trouble with this there was a company called TaskRabbit. I don't know if it still exists, but TaskRabbit was particularly... Did they really? Yeah. Oh, right. Because one of the major thing for TaskRabbits was put together IKEA furniture. Now, here was the problem. People would say, hey, I want you to come do this task. And then they would auction it off. Okay, sounds fair. I want you to build these 3 IKEA things for me. Great. I'll do it for $50. Molly says, I'll do it for 40. Somebody else says, I'll do it for 35. They really need the work. They show up, takes 4 hours. Okay. Now they're getting paid $9 an hour or something in that range. And the minimum wage in San Francisco is 15. Federal minimum wage might be 8. Then the person complains about it, and you have this back and forth. And this is what happens with a lot of what are they called? Handymen, but there's a non-sexist word for handyman. Handy people. I don't know. Anyway, people who do project-based, whatever. They give you a price based on the project, and sometimes the project takes longer and it's their fault. Sometimes it takes shorter and they get the benefit and you feel like you're overpaid, whatever. But TaskRabbit made this into such an efficient system. And there were so many people looking for work in these tasks that too often people were under minimum wage. That was the main issue.
So TaskRabbit is the bad guy here.
I think it was a really great idea to have a reverse auction so that consumers could get the best price and you have price discovery. The problem was they never had the foresight to say, with a minimum of $15 an hour. So this cannot go below, if they just put that in the terms of service, people can battle it out for how much they'll pay to do this. Boom. The other one was, by the way, Amazon Turk. Remember that one? Mechanical Turk? So Mechanical Turk would put in like, hey, tag this photo and tell us 3 things in the photo. Oh, that's an orange and a flower and a vase. Should you be able to have that be the lowest possible price globally? Or do you need to have a minimum wage there? Because if you did one of these if you said, I'll do it for 5 cents and you did, I don't know, 3 an hour, 15 cents. Yeah, you might get to like $7 an hour or something. Yeah, maybe, if you're in California, you now broke labor laws. Should you be able to put that kind of task on the web on a global basis? I don't know how you feel about that. If people are opting into it, should they be able to do that?
I think what I said. I think there were lots of abuses over here, lots of overcorrection over here. I think we are still trying to figure this out. This is a pretty nascent tsunami in the labor world, but it's not a conversation that's going away, obviously.
Yeah. That's the one that I struggle with is Mechanical Turk, because it's like anonymous work that people are doing while they're at work in a lot of cases. All right.
That's what it really comes down to. Jake Hal just can't stand it. He's like, anyway, okay, let's do the startup.
I'm fine with it. I mean, it seems to me like if you were the security guard and I guess you were supposed to be looking at stuff. Anyway, the free market person in me believes like, it would be kind of cool if people in, I don't know, Alabama and people in Manila were both, able to do Mechanical Turk at home. But do the people in Alabama deserve to get paid more than people in Manila? I don't know. It's a very hard. When you get to globalization, it gets pretty hard.
Yes, that's true. And that is a conversation we do not have time for because we could do that all day. Startup of the day. Yeah. Let's just talk about this adorable freaking startup, Bear Robotics. This is so, first of all, cutest name ever. Bravo, Bear Robotics. which makes these adorable little self-driving robots that run food in restaurants, this is also a labor story. But
exactly, here we go.
Back in March, I'm telling you, labor is everything. Back in March, Bear Robotics raised an $81 million Series B at a $481 million valuation led by the private equity firm IMM. Back in 2020, you had Dishcraft Robotics CEO Linda Pouliot on the podcast to talk about dishwashing robots.
Yes.
This is like all of a piece. In 2021, Miso Robotics CEO Mike Bell came on to talk about burger flipping robots.
Yes.
And then now, as we know, restaurants are having a hard time hiring dishwashers and bussers for the low hourly rates. So can it all be done by adorable little robots? This is if you're watching us, by the way, you're seeing the Flippy, which is the burger flipping robot.
Yeah.
It's
really
coming.
Work.
Robots have taken a long time. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the question, right? Is like robots are expensive to produce. They have to get it right every time in a restaurant environment or anywhere, especially actually even more in a manufacturing environment.
The mission matters is what I learned. So the mission matters. So the complexity of the mission, and then time is what matters. So, obviously we're big investors in CafeX. Making somebody a drink. Literally, CafeX arm takes a cup of different sizes, fills it with ice, then pours an espresso over the ice, or pours some milk in there, gets the espresso on top of it, then does foam from another machine. So you can do any combination of those things. You could pull the tap, Molly, and get green tea. Then you could do a little foam on top of it after getting the ice, and then you can get some cookies. So the reason we invested in that is because when I looked at the dishwasher, when I looked at the pizza, Zoom, the burger, there was a full burger place. It was Flippy. I also looked at tea, smoothies, and ramen. I looked at all of these 5-6 years ago. There were only 2 that did the whole mission. The dishwashing robot, because they used their specific plates. They narrowed the mission. It was only for cafeterias. You had to use their plates. Yeah. So when their plates came across the conveyor belt, the robotic arm had a magnet, and it knew the size of it, boom, it put it in. It wasn't China. It wasn't a wine glass combined with a glass, combined with a, you get the idea.
Yep. It was a conveyor belt system. Yep.
Yeah. And it was pretty straightforward. Now we look at this one, Bear Robotics. What's the mission?
The mission is take plates around, right?
It seems like
over here.
Yeah, they look like, just for people who are watching, R2-D2. And they have sometimes multiple platforms on them. So imagine R2-D2, but with 3 shelves on it. Now, when you're in the kitchen, this is what I believe happens. The 4 of us go to lunch. There's 2 burritos. There's a chimichanga, which I think is a deep fried burrito. Kind of like that one. And then somebody gets the fajitas. Perfect. Boom. Okay, that's got to get from the kitchen to table number 2. It's a booth. They put those on there. It goes to the table. Now, what I'm unsure of is, does the server take them off there or does the customer? But
in the video, it looks like the customer is just like grabbing it. Although there is also some video where the server can do it.
So apparently it does both.
Yeah, you could do either.
So
and you could really tailor it probably to your specific restaurant, right? Like, do you want just to bring it to the server and the server does it? Or, and then you can put the dirty dishes. This is amazing. This would actually save a lot of server time and let servers be much more interactive, because then you could put the dirty dishes. I mean, it's literally just like the running. It's the busing, the bringing it out and the taking it back. And you have this ring fenced kind of environment where the robots are like, I can only go to table 3, 6, 9, 10, 15,
Limited mission. You've narrowed the mission. What I like is the busing is a really good one too, because you imagine the bus. I used to be called the bus boy. What do you call them? Bussers? Busser. Okay, the busser comes. You remember sometimes you go to a restaurant like a TGI Fridays and they bring the bucket with them? And you're like, But, usually you have to leave and they bring the big bucket and they put everything in it and then they bring it to the kitchen. Well, here the robot comes next to them. They fill the robot and the robot leaves. That's kind of cool when you think about it. They don't have to carry it back to the kitchen, right? And this is for running. So what I don't know if you're seeing this experience, but because of the lack of servers, running is becoming a thing now, where you order at your table and then your food just comes with a runner. Now, if you had an ordering system like Toast, this is the one I see come up most often. You order from Toast on your phone, and then this would come and you take your plates off. There's never an error. This eliminates the error of like, hey, here's your food, and then you start eating. You're like, wait a second, I didn't know what jalapeno poppers, and it's like, oh, that was other tables. Keep it. So this is going to reduce a lot of errors. I love this idea. I don't know that it's a great investment, but it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's obviously a lot of technology and hardware and sales and deployment, and you're gonna have the labor disruption question, but I do love it, and it is the future without a doubt.
Are you concerned about the food being open and coming to you on an open robot?
It'd be coming to me in someone's open hand.
I guess that's right.
As an alternative.
Yeah. They are doing room service, by the way. I've seen room service robots for this. That makes the most sense to me. Imagine you're in a hotel and I slide in a closed thing, your Eggs Benedict, some waffles, whatever you're getting there. And then it's outside your door and it rings your bell automatically because it's, why not? And it's like it's outside the door and then you open it, the thing's open, you take your food, boom, easy peasy.
I desperately want that because room service is one of the most awkward human interactions of all. And they're like, can I come in? And you're like in your bathrobe because I always get breakfast. That's my one room service thing.
So
I have a whole system. You're in your bathrobe and they're like, can I come in? Yeah. And then that they're like, the tip's already been written into there, but then they're standing there. And it's just, I just want that to be a robot. And then you got to figure out how to get the tray outside and hold the door open and not have the door close on you while you're trying to get
it's so
that. Please bring me the robot for
that. Nobody wants these jobs. These jobs suck in America. They suck everywhere. Yeah, I mean, some jobs just suck. And you know what? If I could go to a Michelin star restaurant and not have to deal with the server and just order from my phone, I would prefer it. I know that's sacrilege to people. I'd love ordering on my phone, especially when you have kids and they want more spätzle or they want an extra order of deviled eggs and I can just bang order it. I don't have to find a server. Yeah. Man, when you have 2 6-year-old raptors like I do,
that's what I want at every other restaurant. And then at a Michelin star restaurant, I want the best, nicest person who knows everything about the food and they tell you exactly how to eat it. This thing, it's molecular gastronomy. So it looks like a leaf. So it's actually food and you can eat that. And, give me the then make it a VIP server experience. And they don't have to worry about taking plates back and forth because a robot's doing that. Then it's perfect.
Yeah. Nick's pointing out that this one doesn't eliminate the server. It could. I think what these robotic companies do, they're very concerned about the eliminating jobs angle.
Yes.
Because every time the press calls them, and I saw this with Cafe X, it's like, oh, so you're eliminating jobs.
Eliminating jobs.
It's like, okay. I think everybody realizes right now, that ship has sailed. Nobody wants to go into fields and pick strawberries. Let robots do it. Just like we used to have humans, pulling wheat out of the ground. That used to be done with a sickle, right? This was backbreaking labor. Just everybody knows. Okay, everybody knows. Robots, fantastic. Mar-a-Lago are robots. All right, let's move on to the next.
Just in case you wanted to drive home your
the point
of view today.
the point here is exactly. The point here is.
I don't know why you're being so baity.
I'm not trying to be.
Behind the scenes, by the way, J. Cal called me a Karen before we even started rolling today.
I didn't. I said,
I'm like, what is this?
It's like 30 haircut.
It's like a setup. It's like you set me up to fail today. He was like, yeah, super Karen.
Your haircut before we even started. Like your 0 dark 30. You look like a CIA agent. He's like, who's the mentally ill woman on?
Who's the union guy? Homeland. He's out here like Molly's Jimmy Hoffa.
Who's the mentally ill woman on?
Oh no, I didn't watch it, but I love where this is going. You didn't watch Homeland?
Oh, the woman's got schizophrenia and she's the greatest CIA agent of all time. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, totally. And my haircut does look like hers. Yeah, Claire Danes.
It looks exactly like her. I'm not saying you're not suffering from schizophrenia or anything. But that was the best part of the character.
I'm a schizophrenic Karen who just wants everybody to be in a union. That's my role here today, apparently.
No. It's not. Don't do that. No, you look like 0 Dark 30. Who is the woman from 0 Dark 30? That movie was incredible. That one who killed Osama bin Laden. Yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting with the black turtleneck or whatever, the black sweater and the perfect haircut. That's it.
Maybe I do feel a little murdery today. All right. Anyway, let's do one quick M&A before we got to get out of here. Instant startup. There's consolidation happening. This is one of those
good
simultaneous. Yeah, exactly. This is a bouncing along the bottom, like you've been saying.
Yeah.
Combined with exits of a type. Consolidation is the key to shaking out a healthy industry. It's painful, but it has to happen, and it's starting. Instant delivery startup Getir is in advanced talks to acquire its competitor, Gorillas. These are both rapid delivery companies, primarily operating in, I think, Latin America. Getir is based in Istanbul. Gorillas is Berlin-based. I guess they must operate in those markets also, I would imagine. Getir last raised, this is amazing. This is Sequoia joint. Last raised $768 million at an $11.8 billion valuation in March.
Amazing.
Sequoia is an investor, not the lead investor. Gorillas last raised $950 million at a $3 billion valuation in September 2021. Gorillas has previously held talks with competitors about merging or selling its business. The startups both reportedly had trouble raising from investors in 2022 because they were burning cash fast for expansion.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
which we're just not doing right now.
Everybody copied the Uber playbook, which was, get to as many cities as possible, have a decentralized organization, and move quick. That's great when you have free money. We don't have free money anymore. Therefore, you have to hit profitability before you fight a war on 1,000 fronts or dozens of fronts. That's a capital intensive, inefficient way to do it. And you give up the efficiency, Molly, for speed. Mm-hmm. Now the market wants something different. Even for the mighty Uber and Airbnb, everybody else, they're like, show us the money, show us the profits.
Yep.
And that's why, the idea of like, hey, we're going to fight a war on all fronts is over. And what this consolidation does is it stops the wars where people are discounting and using VC dollars to gain market share. And they fight this battle, which, like many wars, and this is not war with people dying, so I'm not making light of it or anything, but in these battles between companies, they both lose because they're both losing money each time. And it's not healthy. It's fine for a while, but it truly becomes unsustainable. Prolonged wars like this, everybody loses. And this is a healthy part, like they can't get more money, so you consolidate. Mm-hmm. Now you're not discounting each other. And this should have happened with Uber and Lyft. There was a moment in time where Lyft almost went to Uber and where DoorDash almost went to Uber. And if one of those two had happened, all of these companies, the entire sector would be looked at, well, kind of like it's being looked at now, which is, okay, it's going to be profitable. But it wouldn't have had this 5 years of this could never be profitable.
Is that, and I ask this sincerely, is that how people are looking at instant delivery specifically? Because I feel like there still is not a proof point for delivery being profitable.
I was talking about ride sharing. I was looking at ride sharing food delivery, which now has proven that it can be profitable. Instant deliveries, I think it can be. So your question was, do people look at it that way? No, they still have to prove it.
Right. Because it hasn't ever been so far still, right?
Yeah, we talked about this at
delivering
one point.
Food profitably?
You can deliver food profitably for sure. You can do ride sharing profitably for sure. Mm-hmm. This one, I am not sure that people will pay. I'm not sure how many missions there are where people are willing to pay $20 or $30 on top of their $30 7-Eleven bill or their Walgreens bill, right? Real delivery cost, I put at $20, $30 per order. Because that's what you wind up paying, right? If you use Postmates, Uber Eats, DoorDash, it winds up being plus $20 to $30 for the consumer. That's fine on dinner. Is that fine for deodorant and soap and a gallon of milk? Probably not. Yeah. So I think this is a very narrow use case. You're in a city, you're a young urban professional, you need cigarettes and booze, deodorant, shaving cream, quarter milk, whatever it is, diapers. I
wonder if that GoPuff guy would come back on. I just still think the jury is out on this whole business model and it's been out since 2001,
The jury's out, I think, because nobody needs something that quickly. Or the times you do need it that quickly are few and far between.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how often, even with like Uber, I want to use Uber for delivery of like soap and, other stuff, but I kind of have it on Instacart and subscribe and save the items I use most frequently. So I find I don't, as somebody who's a planner, not a prepper like you, but a planner, like you're way ahead of the curve. I'm kind of like right behind you. This is for like, I think millennials who are like young people who don't do any planning, right?
Yeah. Or it's like you all of a sudden decide you want to make something and you need the ingredients. That happens right now because my son is going through a cooking phase. Like that's
kind of cool.
People do this. It's pretty, right, exactly. We need lemons. And like he decided he wanted to make pecan pie the other night. So we're like, let's DoorDash some stuff. Yeah. No, it's a real fun phase, by the way. And thanks to the bear. This is why it's happening.
Oh, really? He watched the bear and he got into cooking.
Yeah, we watched it together and now he wants to cook. It's the best.
I just love that series. I mean, is there going to be a second version of that or is that a one and done?
I don't know. I hope there's
I
more.
love the
Season 2 is coming.
Actually, the guy
so
who's
fantastic.
the brother in that, or the cousin, the tall guy
Is
who's been
in
working.
Andor.
He's in Andor.
Yes,
and I
got
love
so
him.
excited.
And he was in Girls.
And he's same
And I
personality.
still don't know his name.
He played John Carreyrou in The Dropout, too.
He did. That's right. Oh my God.
Eben Boss something.
I love this guy.
That's
this guy's
right.
going to wind
He's
up getting.
great. He's
This guy's going to win an Oscar. Somebody's going to put him in something good. This guy's getting some good scripts. I bet you he gets nominated for an Oscar next 2 or 3
He
years.
does this type too really well. This kind of like crabby, slightly damaged, neurotic. Yeah, he's got a type.
Yeah.
It works. It works.
I just love the fact that
it's wonderful.
he's dealing blow out of the restaurant.
I
It's
mean-
I'm like, oh, right back to my childhood. Literally, this is my childhood, Molly. Like at my dad's bar, at a certain age, it all became revealed to me. Bookie, coke dealer, loan shark, Hell's Angel, cop who could solve problems for you. Like literally, bing, 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 bing.
Wow.
Like, this whole
Just
cast
all
of
lined
characters who I knew and would like run and get cigarettes for. This one guy,
Amazing.
he would give me. He'd say, "Hey, kid, come here. How's your pop? Good. Okay. Go get me 2 packs of Marlboro Lights. Marlboro Lights were $1.50 at the time. He'd give me a 20, sometimes a 50. I would go run. He'd say, run, get me 2 packs of 50. He'd like to see me run. I run. I get 2 packs of Marlboro Lights. I bring him the change. $17, sometimes $47. Say, keep it, kid. I keep it. I love this guy. I'm not going to say his name. Rest in peace. This guy was running, he had services that were available. And in Brooklyn, every establishment had services available. Now, my dad wasn't running the services, but he wasn't also kicking the people out. And so as part of the keeping the peace, he would tip the proprietor, my dad's kids who were working in the restaurant with extraordinary tips. He was a bookie.
Yeah,
He was the bookie. I never told you the story of this one.
Wow.
So one time, and this is great for the show. Anyway, I go to the bathroom. I had to clean the bathrooms in this joint. So I go to the bathroom every couple hours I go clean the bathroom. So go clean the bathroom. Place is a mess, whatever. I'm like 13 years old. I look on the side of the toilet and there is a wad of cash with a rubber band around it. We call this a knot in Brooklyn. There's a knot. And you can always tell like a serious knot. Some knots have around them like a broccoli rubber band. Some knots are so big, they got a little thin rubber band around them a couple times. Anyway, this is a big freaking knot of money. It's a couple of G's. So I pick it up. I bring it to my dad. My dad looks at it like he's looking at like an oyster or something. And he like kind of does a thing with his hand where he kind of weighs it. He looks at it from like 1 or 2 angles. He goes, oh, that's Artie's. Hands it back to me. Give it to Artie. I'm like, he's not here. He's like, he'll be back. So now I'm holding $7,000 in my pocket. All of a sudden I see Artie come through the thing. I said, oh, Artie. And he looks at me and goes, yeah, let me have it. He knows I have it. Because he knows nobody's going to take that.
Right.
Because in Brooklyn, you know whose knot. It's not because you see people take these knots out. You know this was Artie's knot. So I hand it to him. I kid you not. Good kid. Peels off 100 off the top, gives to me. It was all hundreds. There wasn't a 50 in here. He literally, this is in 1982. He peels off 100 for J-Cow. This is when I was like, whoa, money's cool. All right, that's it, everybody. This week in Brooklyn, stories from the 70s and 80s.
What a show. What a show.
I'm J-Cow. She's Zero Dark 30.
A lot happened today.
Oh, my Lord. Woo.
Tomorrow, we got Crypto Roundtable. We got another big show coming
Nothing
tomorrow.
controversial there.
Nothing controversial there.
Any perp walks this week?
I read a super fun story about how all that energy savings from the ETH merge just got rolled right into Bitcoin's highest energy consumption ever. True story. Yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow. We're going to have a good time. And then we got another episode of The Next Unicorns, one of the most fun interviews I've done in ages with Liquid Death CEO Mike Cesario. Good time.
Oh, yes, Liquid Death. I want to hear that one. All right.
Freaking
Give me a great show tomorrow. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.